Hello, my friends. Today we'll start with the fact that Russia attacked a coal mine in the Dnipropetrovsk region. It's reported that 192 miners were underground. By the time this video was made, they had already been evacuated, so Russia is actively targeting the Dnipropetrovsk region, and the number of strikes is increasing. But in order to respond to Russia, not only with Ukrainian drones, but also with Tomahawk missiles, Trump's decision is needed. And once again, he said that the US doesn't have enough of those missiles, so they don't want to transfer them to Ukraine.
You know, we can't give all of our weapons to Ukraine. We just can't do that. And I've been very good to President Zelensky and to Ukraine, but we can't give, if we're going to be short, I don't want to do that. I can't jeopardize the United States.
Did you get any sense?
As you can see, Trump backed down, while Russia, on the contrary, is increasing the intensity of its strikes and offensive actions. Zelensky also commented on this situation. During the interview, the host showed the president a chart of Russian missile and drone launches since Trump's presidency began. Zelensky replied that it's not about the American president. Russia has expanded its capabilities, invested money, received help from North Korea, machines from China, and licenses from Iran. This shows that Putin doesn't want to stop the war. He needs pressure and ultimatums. At the same time, very bad news is coming from the front lines. Let's start with the Dobropillia direction. Here, the Russians are currently assaulting only Volodymyrivka and are pulling in new reserves for the next attacks. So far, the Ukrainian forces haven't managed to cut off this section of the front, which allows the Russians to keep building up forces and expand their control zone. Sabotage and reconnaissance groups are already breaking through into Novy Donbass. Geolocation footage shows Ukrainian forces destroying Russian groups in this area, meaning the situation remains very difficult in the Pokrovsk direction. In addition to the ongoing fighting in the central part of Pokrovsk, reports began coming in last night that battles are also taking place in the center of the city of Rodynske. Donetsk region. The Russians have expanded their control zone in the city. Our soldiers are holding the defense in high-rise buildings. As seen from footage shared by Ukrainian fighters, half of the city is already marked red on the map, and only a small western part remains under Ukrainian control. The situation here is rapidly worsening, and many may be asking why soldiers are posting this information when the official frontline map still shows no changes. Unfortunately, this is because the general staff hasn't yet confirmed the loss of territory, so for now we only have unofficial data, and that's why the maps aren't being updated. Thus, if today the Russians are already fighting in the central parts of Pokrovsk and Rodinske, it means two front lines are moving toward each other, and the current distance between them is about 8 kilometers, which is a very bad sign for the entire Pokrovsk direction. Meanwhile, assaults continue near Krasny Liman and Novoekonomichne, and there are ongoing battles for Lysivka, Molodetske, with Russian troops trying to break through near Udachne, Kotliny, and Zvirove. As for Chunishine, The Russians once again claimed to have taken control of the village. So the situation here remains difficult, and here is how Ukrainian soldiers describe the situation in Pokrovsk today. City of Pokrovsk. Update on the line of contact. The Russians have advanced through the private sector in the western part of the city and reached the railway line, which runs through the center of Pokrovsk. The Russians have also brutally shot civilians beyond the railway. I've marked the exact spot in red. There is very little information or footage from the Shakhtarsky and Sonychny districts, but many report that the Russians already control those areas. The real situation remains unclear. The western and almost the entire southern part of the city are under Russian control. In urban combat, it's difficult to determine exactly where the Russians have entrenched and where they're just moving through, and therefore it's possible that they control a larger part of the city than shown on the map, or possibly the opposite. We'll keep monitoring the situation, but to be honest, there is not much room for optimism. So, unfortunately, it's already becoming clear that the city is gradually falling under Russian control. How much the front line will shift after the loss of Pokrovsk is still a big question. We can only hope that there are new defensive lines prepared behind Pokrovsk. Meanwhile, in Myrnohrad, Russian forces are also trying to break through. Ukrainian soldiers have shared several videos showing how they destroyed Russian groups inside the city. The Russians have entrenched themselves at an industrial site east of Balagan. In addition, a small group of Russians broke through to the eastern outskirts of Myrnohrad, but was eliminated. Still, this is an alarming sign. The Russians continue probing our defenses and searching for weak points, now directly inside Myrnohrad. And Trump said that Putin has already taken some Ukrainian territories, so in any case, they will remain under Russian control.
Any sense from Putin that he would be willing or open to the idea of ending this war without taking significant property from Ukraine?
Well, he's going to take something. I mean, they fought, and he has a lot of property. I mean, he's won certain property. If you say that, he's won certain property. We're the only nation that goes in and wins a war and then leaves, like we did under President Bush in the Middle East. We go in, we blast the hell out of everybody, destroy the place, and then we leave, Remember, I used to say, keep the oil.
Meanwhile, everyone is waiting and hoping for an end to the war, and Zelensky once again stated that he agrees to stop the war along the current front line. In an NBC News interview, Zelensky said he understands Donald Trump's message about about the need to end the war while maintaining the current front line. If we want to stop the war and urgently move to peace talks, we must stay where we are. We cannot give Putin anything more because he is a terrorist. He emphasized that any negotiations must take place in a quiet setting, not under missiles or drones. But as we can see, the Russians continue to advance and have no plans to stop. Let's move to the Novopavlivka direction. Today, attacks are reported only near Kotlerivka. The Russians are trying to move across the fields toward Novopavlivka, but they haven't succeeded. The Ukrainian forces are managing to repel all attacks. In the direction of Pokrovsk, the Russians are assaulting Sosnivka and Novomykolaivka. The situation is very bad, and the Russians have managed to advance significantly across the fields. Attacks are ongoing, so the Dnipropetrovsk region is gradually losing new territories. In the Huliaipole direction, the Russians have intensified their activity after a confirmed breakthrough. They have fully captured Poltavka, although the general staff hasn't officially confirmed this information yet. Ukrainian fighters also report the loss of another village, Okhotniche, which indicates that the defense here has been breached and the situation is rapidly deteriorating. Fighting is also ongoing in Malinivka, and yesterday the Russians managed to advance there as well, gradually pushing the front line closer to Huliaipole. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, the Russians are assaulting Stepove and Shalon Stepnohirsk. But over the past 24 hours, there have been no major changes and no new counterattacks by Ukrainian forces have been reported. Importantly, the Russians have been pushed back here, and their plans to break through to Zaporizhzhia have failed, at least for the near future. In the Kherson direction, the Russians are advancing near the Antonivsky bridge and continue shelling Kherson. Moving to the Kostiantynivka direction. Here the Russians are pushing toward the outskirts of Kostiantynivka and trying to secure positions in the fields. They're also assaulting Ploshivka, though Russian sources claim the village is already under their control. Additionally, they advance toward Berestok and in the area of Rusin Yar. However, over the past 24 hours, there have been no confirmed changes, and the Ukrainian forces continue to repel all attacks. In the Kramatorsk direction, the Russians are assaulting Orikho-Vasilievka, but have had no success. The front line here remains unchanged. In the Siversk direction, the situation has somewhat stabilized, as there have been no new advances along the front line. However, the fact that the front line is near the outskirts of Siversk indicates serious challenges. The Russians are still gathering reserves for future assaults, and a small number of offensive actions are being recorded toward Yampil, Dronivka, and from Vyimka toward the southern part of Siversk. For now, we are waiting to see how the situation develops. In the Lyman direction, the Russians are advancing near Zarychne and Serednye. Their activity is minimal compared to previous days as they are regrouping. In the Borova direction, no new assaults have been recorded, and the situation has remained unchanged over the past 24 hours. In the Kupiansk direction, the Russians are assaulting Malashapkivka. Fighting is ongoing almost in the center of Kupiansk, and they are also attacking Petropavlivka and advancing near Peshane. Over the past 24 hours, there have been no major changes and the fighting continues. In the Dvorichna direction, no new assaults have been recorded and the front line has remained unchanged over the past 24 hours. In the Velykyi Burluk direction, the Russians are assaulting Kolodezny, Bologivka, and Odradne. But the situation remains unchanged and all attacks are being successfully repelled. In the Kharkiv direction, it is calm and no new assaults by Russian forces and shelling has been minimal. In Vovchansk, no new assaults have been recorded and the front line remains unchanged. In the Sumy direction, minimal activity has been recorded for the third day in a row. There were a few attacks near the villages of Kostiantynivka and Yablonivka, but the front line remains unchanged. And President Zelensky stated that Ukraine will not lose this war and Putin will not win.
We are not losing this war, and Putin is not winning. And really, his army now in the weak position. I think so, because they really, from the beginning of this war, they could occupy 1% of our land, but they spend 1,300,000 people.
And that's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.